From the beginning, everyone in the kingdom knew one fact. Ava hated Prince Valen. Not just disliked, hated, feared, distrusted. And Valen? He barely acknowledged her existence, except with cold, unreadable eyes that made her feel like prey instead of a future queen. The marriage wasn't born from love. It wasn't destiny. It wasn't even choice. It was political debt. Ava's father, a respected general, had once saved the king's life. But instead of medals or land, the king had demanded something else: his daughter. Now Ava stood in a grand cathedral, the air heavy with incense and silence, while thousands watched her lift her chin and pretend she wasn't falling apart inside. Prince Valen stood across from her, tall, sharp-featured, and impossibly composed. His black ceremonial uniform fit him like armor, and the silver crest of the royal house gleamed against his chest. His expression was unreadable, like a marble statue carved with quiet danger. The priest spoke. Ava's pulse thundered. Valen's gaze never once left her face. When the vows came, Ava hesitated, not because she couldn't speak them, but because saying them meant surrendering the last piece of her freedom. Her throat tightened, but finally she forced out the words, "I agree." Not yes, not I do, just agreement, like signing a contract she couldn't escape. Valen's response was smooth, confident, and disturbingly calm. "I take her as mine." There was no warmth, no affection, just claim. A subtle tremor ran through Ava's shoulders. She had heard rumors, everyone had. Prince Valen was not like other royals. He was strategic, guarded, and dangerous. It was said he fought in wars under a false identity, that he returned with scars and secrets no one dared question. Some believed he had no heart. As the crown was placed gently on her head, Ava silently wondered whether she had just married a ruler or a weapon. The ceremony ended with applause, but the cheers felt distant, like she was underwater, drowning quietly. Valen offered his arm. She didn't want to take it, but thousands of eyes and centuries of tradition left her no choice. His arm was warm beneath the fabric, and the weight of his presence pressed against her spine as they walked together down the aisle. Ava kept her gaze ahead, refusing to meet his eyes. Outside, golden banners snapped in the wind. The palace gates glowed in the late afternoon sunlight. Everything looked perfect, like a fairy tale ending. But the pressure in her chest said otherwise. At the carriage, Valen finally spoke, his voice deep, controlled, and unsettlingly close. "You're shaking." Ava stiffened. "I'm not afraid of you." "Good," he whispered, his breath brushing her ear. "Fear makes people foolish." She swallowed hard. His tone wasn't threatening. It was worse. It was factual, like he was stating the weather. They sat inside the carriage, a space too luxurious, yet too silent. The world outside blurred into streaks of stone and flowers as the horses pulled them toward the palace. Ava stared out the window, hands clasped to hide the tremor. Valen finally broke the silence. "You think I wanted this?" he said quietly. She turned, shocked. His expression didn't soften, but there was something different in his eyes. Something tired, something almost human. "No," she replied. "I think neither of us did." Their eyes held, not with affection, but recognition. Two people bound by duty, resentment, and consequences neither chose. Then Valen leaned back, voice lower, more controlled. "But now that it has happened," he murmured, "the world will expect unity, strength, a bond." Ava's pulse skipped. Are you saying we have to pretend to care for each other? No, he said, gaze locking hers with unsettling intensity. I'm saying the kingdom will watch us, and I do not lose. The carriage slowed. The palace gates rose ahead, tall, dark, and intimidating. Ava realized something chilling. This wasn't just a marriage. It was a battlefield. And the man sitting beside her, the one she hated, now controlled her future, her life, her fate. And she had no idea whether he planned to protect her or destroy her. The palace was breathtaking. Vast marble halls, chandeliers shimmering like stars, and guards stationed every 20 steps. But despite the luxury, Ava felt like she had walked into a finely decorated cage. Servants bowed as she passed, whispering behind lowered eyes. Some faces held pity, others, fear. Valen walked beside her with the effortless confidence of someone who owned every marble tile beneath his boots. He didn't look at the paintings or the gold-trimmed pillars. He had grown up here. He knew every shadow. Finally, they reached her wing, or so she thought. This floor is private, Valen said before she could step further. His voice echoed in the stillness. Only we have access. She blinked. We? A palace maid hurried forward and opened 2 large doors. Ava froze. There was only one bedroom, one bed, one suite, one shared space. Her heartbeat stuttered. This isn't what I was told. I thought... That you would live separately? Valen finished, arching a brow. Yes. Well, he said calmly, unbuttoning his ceremonial gloves. You were told wrong. Ava clenched her jaw. Am I allowed to disagree with anything in this marriage? Valen paused, not angry, but amused, as if she were a child asking whether fire could burn. You may disagree, he said. You may argue. You may even hate me. His gaze sharpened. But you will not leave. She swallowed, defiance burning under her ribs. And if I try? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't move, but his answer was enough to chill her blood. Then the kingdom will believe the queen has betrayed her crown, and traitors aren't granted freedom. They are dealt with. Not a threat, a fact. Silence spread between them, heavy, suffocating. Then Valen turned away. You'll attend dinner at 8. Wear something formal. Public eyes will be on us. He walked toward the door, pausing only long enough to deliver one final blow. And Ava, I don't need you to love me, but you will stand beside me. The door shut behind him. Ava stood there, breath shaking in her chest. She wanted to scream, to tear off the crown, to run until the palace was nothing but memory. But instead, she forced herself to breathe, to think, to survive. She walked toward the mirror, the crown glimmering atop her dark hair. Her reflection looked like a stranger, someone elegant, someone powerful, someone trapped. Behind her, the palace maid spoke softly. Your Highness, may I share something? Quietly? Ava turned. The woman's eyes darted to the door, confirming they were alone. Prince Valen, she whispered carefully, is not the monster people believe. Ava frowned. He threatened me. No, the maid corrected, voice barely audible. He warned you. There's a difference. Ava didn't know whether that made things better or far, far worse. Before she could respond, the maid motioned to a wardrobe filled with gowns. Everything you wear, everywhere you go, everything you say, it will be watched. Ava nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest. The maid bowed and left. Ava sat at the edge of the bed, trying to quiet the storm inside her. Anger, confusion, fear, all tangled together. She didn't want this life. She didn't want this crown. She definitely didn't want Valen. But deep inside, beneath the resentment, something else stirred. Curiosity. Because the version of Valen the kingdom whispered about, cold, ruthless, heartless, did not fully match the man who spoke earlier. There was control, yes. Power, absolutely. But also something wounded, something guarded, something he was desperately trying to protect. The question was, what was he hiding? And why did she get the feeling that discovering the truth would change everything? A knock echoed through the room, 3 slow, measured taps. She already knew who it was. Valen. Ava stood, spine straightening, chin lifting, not as a prisoner, but as a queen. The door opened. His eyes met hers. No warmth, no cruelty, just a silent understanding. Dinner, he said. Ava stepped forward, voice steady. Lead the way, Your Highness. And for the first time, Valen smiled. Not with softness, but with recognition, as if he knew. The war between them had officially begun. His armor dinner wasn't just dinner. It was a performance, a stage, a warning, and a test, all wrapped in royal ceremony. Ava walked beside Valen through a long corridor lined with velvet banners and stained glass portraits of past rulers. Every whisper, every bow, every stare followed her like a shadow. The dining hall doors opened, revealing a room filled with nobles, generals, advisors, the most powerful people in the kingdom. And every single one of them turned to look at her. Some smiled politely. Some inspected her like a rare artifact. Some looked as if she were an intruder who had no right to breathe the same air. Valen's voice cut through the tension. Presenting Her Majesty, Queen Ava. The title rang across the room like thunder. For a second, just one, she felt the weight of her crown become real. Valen escorted her to the head table. Servants poured wine. Crystal and silver gleamed beneath chandeliers. Musicians played a soft, elegant melody. Ava kept her posture perfect. Chin up, shoulders relaxed, even though her breathing was tight. Across from her sat Lord Kale, Valen's advisor. Older, sharp-eyed, his glare carried poison. So, he began, swirling his wine. The rumors were true. Ava blinked once, calm, unmoved. What rumors? She asked. That the prince chose a wife with spirit. A few nobles chuckled. Valen didn't. If you have something to say, Ava continued, lifting her wine glass, say it. I dislike conversations that hide behind politeness. A hush fell over the table. Lord Kale smiled, thin, testing. Very well, he said. The kingdom expected a union with a noble house, someone with experience, someone regal. Instead, he gestured vaguely toward her. We received a stranger. Ava held his stare. I didn't choose this marriage, she replied. But I am here now, and whether you approve or not does not change my crown. Something in the room shifted, like a line had been drawn. Lord Kyle leaned back, expression unreadable. Before he could respond, Valen finally spoke. Careful, Kyle. The table froze. Valen's tone wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was final. You forget, Valen continued, that while the queen may be new to her role, she sits beside me, not below you. A murmur rippled through the hall. Kyle lowered his head, respectful but not defeated. Of course, Your Highness. Ava didn't look at Valen, but something in her chest tightened. Had he defended her? Did it matter? Before she could decide, dinner continued, conversations resuming, laughter forced back into the air. But Ava knew two things. Someone in this room hated her enough to challenge her openly. And Valen wasn't as detached as he pretended to be. Later, after the final toast, the crowd dispersed. Ava moved toward the exit, relieved to finally escape the stairs, when she felt someone step beside her. Valen. "You handled Kale well." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "I wasn't aware being publicly insulted counted as a success." He stopped walking. "So you're angry?" She faced him. "Should I be grateful instead?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not annoyance, but understanding. "You think I wanted this," he said quietly. Ava hesitated. Didn't he? "You think I chose a marriage built on duty," he continued, "on pressure, on politics." His voice lowered, just enough for her to hear. "I didn't." Ava stiffened. "So we're both prisoners," she whispered. "No." Valen stepped closer, not threatening, but close enough she could feel his presence. "We are what the crown demands, but how we survive it, that is our choice." A moment lingered, fragile, uncertain. Then a guard approached. "Your Majesties, there's an urgent matter in the Eastern Wing." Valen's expression sharpened in an instant. "What kind of matter?" The guard swallowed. "A message, Your Highness, written on the wall." Ava felt a cold shiver crawl down her spine. "What message?" The guard met her eyes, nervous. "It says, 'She does not belong here. The crown was promised. Remove her, or we will.'" Silence. A threat. A warning. A declaration of war. Ava exhaled slowly, lifting her chin. "So it begins," she murmured. Valen studied her carefully, and for the first time, she saw something unguarded in his face. Concern. Not for the throne, not for politics, for her. He extended a hand. "We face this together." Ava hesitated, not because she feared him, but because she feared what she was starting to feel. Still, she placed her hand in his, and with that single gesture, their marriage changed. Not into love, not yet, but into something dangerous, something unstoppable, something the kingdom wasn't ready for. The palace changed after the threat. Extra guards appeared in the hallways. Torches burned later into the night. Every whisper felt heavier, sharper, as if the walls themselves now listened with suspicion. Ava slept lightly, her hand always near the small gold dagger hidden beneath her pillow. Valen barely slept at all. Meetings, security councils, border reports. Something was moving in the kingdom, something connected to her presence. But no one would say it aloud. Not until the night everything shattered. It happened during a state ceremony, a royal pledge event held on the palace balcony overlooking the courtyard. Hundreds of citizens filled the space below, waving banners and throwing rose petals as the royal couple stepped forward. Ava stood beside Valen, shoulders straight, expression calm, even as anxiety hummed beneath her skin. Someone among the crowd wanted her dead, and today, they might try. Valen's voice projected over the courtyard as he spoke to the people. Confident, steady, every word crafted with precision. Ava scanned the balconies, the rooftops, the windows. She didn't know what she expected to find. A glint, a shadow, a mistake. And then, she saw it. A flicker of metal on the opposite tower. Her breath froze. Valen was still speaking when she grabbed his arm. Hard. "Get down." He barely had time to turn before, crack! A rifle shot split the air. Glass shattered. Guards yelled. Someone screamed. Valen moved instantly, pushing Ava behind him as a second shot rang out, striking the stone only inches from where her head had been. Chaos erupted. Guards swarmed the balcony, forming a shield around them. Civilians screamed and scattered. More gunshots thundered in the distance. Not aimed this time, but distracting, chaotic, deliberate. A planned attack, a coordinated message. Valen's hand gripped Ava's wrist as he pulled her back from the railing, voice low and sharp. "Stay with me." She didn't argue. They moved quickly through a side entryway as guards sealed doors and formed barriers. Footsteps thundered, orders barked, alarms chimed like restless bells. Only when they reached a private hall, sealed, guarded, empty, did Valen stop. His chest rose and fell hard, not from fear, but fury. Ava leaned against the wall, her heartbeat wild. "That shot was meant for me," she whispered. Valen didn't answer, not right away. When he finally turned toward her, something in him had changed. Not anger, not strategy, something personal. "Yes," he said quietly. "It was." Ava swallowed. "Tell me the truth, Valen. Why am I being targeted? Why do they hate me before they even know me?" He hesitated, not because he didn't know the answer, but because saying it out loud made it real. Finally, he stepped closer, voice low enough that even the guards outside couldn't hear. "You weren't just chosen to be my wife," he said. "You were chosen to replace someone." Ava's breath stopped. "The kingdom expected me to marry Lady Seraphine," he continued. "A noble, a strategist, the daughter of the War Council's commander." Ava felt a coldness creep through her chest. "And instead," she whispered, "you married me." Valen nodded. "By royal decree." "But why?" she pressed. "Why choose someone you barely knew? Someone outside the noble houses?" His jaw clenched, not with anger, with pain. "A prophecy," he said finally. Ava blinked. "A prophecy?" He nodded once. "The kingdom's seer declared that the future queen, the one who would secure unity and prevent a war, would come from outside the bloodlines, someone unexpected, someone no one would choose." Ava stared at him, stunned. "So I'm a symbol?" "No," he corrected gently. "You're the one thing this kingdom fears and needs at the same time." Silence settled between them, sharp, fragile, unbearably real. Finally, Ava exhaled, a slow, trembling breath. "So they want me gone to restore what they believe was promised?" "Yes." "And you," she met his eyes, "you're the only reason they haven't succeeded." Valen didn't speak. He didn't need to. The truth was in the way he looked at her, guarded, fierce, unwilling to let anything touch her. Ava took a step closer, slow, deliberate. "Why?" she asked softly. His breath hitched, just barely. "For duty? For the throne? For politics?" His voice was quiet but steady when he finally answered. "No." Ava's heartbeat stumbled. "No?" she repeated. Valen lifted his hand, hesitated, then gently cupped her cheek. His touch was warm, careful, almost reverent. "I protect you," he said, "because somewhere along the way, you stopped being just my responsibility." His thumb brushed lightly against her jaw. "And became the one person I cannot lose." Ava didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Because in that moment, with alarm still echoing in the distance and danger closing in, the most terrifying thing wasn't the gunfire. It was the realization that she no longer hated him. Not even close. She was falling. and so was he. The palace never fully returned to normal after the attack. More guards, more cameras, more silence. But the real change wasn't in the stone walls. It was in Ava and Valen. Something had shifted between them. Not spoken aloud, not acknowledged, but real. Danger had turned strangers into allies, and fear had turned proximity into something deeper, something neither of them could name yet. 3 days after the assassination attempt, the War Council summoned Valen. Ava wasn't invited, but she followed anyway. She kept her distance, stopping outside the large double doors carved with the royal crest. Voices inside were tense, heated, sharp enough to cut through thick wood. "She is the reason the kingdom is unstable," someone hissed. "And you expect us to risk everything for her? She is not fit to be queen." Ava's chest tightened, not with shock, but with confirmation. She knew this resentment existed. She just never expected to hear it so clearly. Then another voice, cold, precise, cut through the arguing. "She was not chosen. She was imposed." Ava froze. She knew that voice. Lady Seraphine. The woman Valen was supposed to marry. The woman the kingdom still believed he should have chosen. A chair scraped. A fist slammed a table. And then Valen's voice thundered like a storm breaking. "Say her name again with disrespect, and I will end this meeting myself." Silence. A tense breath. A warning. A declaration. Not as a king, as a man, defending someone he refused to lose. Ava closed her eyes, her throat tight. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or afraid. When the meeting finally ended, Valen stepped out, shutting the heavy doors behind him. He expected anger, questions, fear. Instead, Ava stood before him, calm, steady, eyes unreadable. "You defended me," she said quietly. Valen exhaled. "I will always defend you." Ava searched his face. "Even if it puts the kingdom at war?" He held her gaze. "Especially then." Her breath trembled. "Why, Valen?" He didn't hesitate this time. "Because you are mine to protect, and I am yours to trust." The words weren't commanding. They weren't possessive. They were a vow. One forged under pressure, not force. Ava lowered her voice. "They think getting rid of me will fix everything." Valen nodded once. "They're wrong." "Because of the prophecy?" "No." He stepped closer, close enough she felt his breath, warm against her cheek. "They're wrong because this kingdom does not choose for me." His voice softened, serious and sincere. "I choose you." Ava swallowed, fighting the sudden burn in her chest. "Then what happens now?" she whispered. Valen looked past her, down the corridor, toward the windows where storm clouds gathered like steel. "War," he said simply. Ava steadied her breathing. "Against your own counsel?" "No." His eyes hardened, sharp as iron. "Against the one who ordered your death." Ava froze. "You know who it is." Valen nodded. His jaw tightened. "My uncle." Ava's pulse stuttered. "The former regent?" "Yes. The man who ruled until Valen was old enough. The man who wanted to rule again." "Then he won't stop," Ava whispered. "No," Valen agreed. "Which is why neither can we." A long silence settled, heavy, but no longer frightening. Then Valen extended his hand to her, palm open, steady, waiting. "Ava." Her name wasn't a formal address. It wasn't a demand. It was a request, a choice, a partnership. "Walk beside me," he said quietly. "Not because you're forced to, not because tradition expects it, His voice lowered, almost a breath. But because we fight best together. Ava looked at his hand, then into his eyes. And for the first time since arriving in the kingdom, she didn't feel trapped. She felt needed, important, wanted. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, warm, grounded, unshakable. Valen's fingers closed around hers, not possessive, protective, unified. And as the first strike of thunder echoed in the distance, signaling the beginning of war, Ava spoke softly, with a resolve she didn't know she had. Then we end this, together. Valen's expression shifted, not to anger or fear, but to something rare. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, love. He leaned in, forehead resting gently against hers. No matter what happens, he whispered, voice steady as a vow. You are my only weakness. His thumb brushed her hand, slow, intentional. And my only strength. Outside, storm winds howled like a kingdom bracing for a reckoning. Inside, two hearts finally beat the same rhythm. Not strangers, not enemies, not a forced arrangement, but a king and queen, forged in danger, united by truth, bound by choice. And the world, whether ready or not, would soon learn. This marriage was no longer a political binding. It was the beginning of an empire.